Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Cryptic Conversations. I'm your host, Tunes from the Crypt. We have another very special episode in store for you today. Today's guest is a man named Indra Rinzler. Indra is a seasoned spiritual guide, teacher, and astrologer who has spent over 50 years exploring self-awareness and holistic living. Drawing on his expertise in Vedic Astrology and the Enneagram of Personality, he helps individuals deepen their understanding of themselves and navigate the path of spiritual growth. Indra's work is rooted in practical wisdom, offering tools to overcome egoic limitations and connect with one's higher self. With a global perspective shaped by extensive travels and a lifetime of introspection, Indra inspires others to embrace authenticity and live with purpose. And I'm honored to have him with us today. So welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Awesome. So, as I like to ask all my guests, to kind of get their backstory, first, talk to me about your early life. Where did you grow up and go to school, and what was your family like?
I grew up in New York, in Manhattan. I grew up in the 50s. I was at the 1952 World Series.
Oh, wow.
Dodgers and Brooklyn. I grew up in Manhattan and wanted to get out of there as quickly as I could. Went to the University of Michigan, and my father was a doctor, and my mother and my father died early, 2 years apart, of natural causes. And so by the time I was 24, I'm going to say on my own, which is sort of a stupid thing to say, but let's just use that as a phrase to express that it was an opportunity to let go of any conditioning, that I had a sort of a blank slate, that I didn't have pulls back and could start exploring. And when I moved to moved to California, and I heard about metaphysical bookstores, which we hadn't heard about at that time. And I started buying books and reading spirituality and astrology, and I just went from there. I don't remember what I always like to say. I don't remember how I said it back then, but it was kind of like, I need to find myself. I need to find truth in life. I need to work on me, whatever it was that kind of those kinds of phrases, but I had it kind of neat and clean back then as to what I was doing, though I had no idea. It was one of the things I like to say is that we don't need to know the last step. We only need to know the first step. People bludgeon themselves with, oh my God, what am I going to do with life? Well, just figure out what you're going to do today and then tomorrow. And I think that's a better way to go. So that's kind of what I did, was to had no idea where I'd end up, but I just started following the breadcrumbs.
I love that. And, and I'm sorry to hear about your parents, to lose them at an early age like that, fairly early. And it seems like, the 60s, man. So you grew up in the 60s, and there was a big boom and renaissance happening during that period with spirituality and all that, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. I talk about that. At some point, I went back and I looked on. You could look online the college yearbooks, or whatever they called them, and the first one, which was I suppose 1964. Everybody is sitting in straight rows with the tie on and up, and
Uh-huh.
very 50s.
Uh-huh.
And then the next one, there might have been two or three people with the tie down. The next one being, like, say,
65.
1965.
Yeah.
Then the tie was two or three people maybe had the tie down, and
Uh,
maybe two or three people were standing up. And the third one, 96, not 96, 66, was there are no rows, no ties, no jackets, total chaos.
wow.
And you could see that I guess it was 65, 66, and 67. You could see in the 3 or 4 years, you could see a total change, a revolution in terms of breaking down norms and exploration, not
Yeah.
knowing what we were doing. I mean,
Yeah.
not having a plan. Once again, first step, not last step. But you
Yeah.
could see that whole changes, and by well, yeah, I mean, 68 with the politics and 69 Woodstock. I mean, it just exploded from there. The Beatles, 60,
Oh yeah.
63, 64. I was at the one of my claims to fame is I was at Newport when Dylan went electric in 1965, Newport Folk Festival.
Ah, okay.
And yeah, they were very wild years in the sense of new thoughts, new ideas, breaking loose, Vietnam War, and
Yeah.
people objecting to a war. That wasn't very American back then, and
Yeah, my dad
it
was
took
in
took
my dad was in Vietnam.
yeah, and took a lot of guts to do that, and breaking loose of societalist patterns and such. It was exciting.
Yeah. So where did you fit in the 60s? Where did you fit in into all that?
Well, I think I started with the tie up, hating the tie and jacket, and then I think I proverbially loosened the tie, and then my father had been in World War II. Your father had been in Vietnam. My father had been in World War II. So he didn't want me to do that because I never heard any stories, but it was pretty horrible. He was a physician, so I guess he saw blood, but he didn't really see battle. But anyway, so he figured out that I could get into the reserves or the National Guard because we had draft because of Vietnam, we had a draft lottery, and he had prepared this for a while. I don't know how long, but my number was a low number, which meant I was going to get drafted. So I ended up being in the National Guard for a few years, and then I switched to the reserves, and I ended up getting out of it after my parents died. I wasn't really interested in any of that, and I had to get, so I got a psychiatrist to help me to get out, and then I needed a lawyer. And once I did
Oh
that, then
wow.
I got out. And by then, I had started growing my hair, which is, you know, still long.
Yeah.
And so I would say it was sort of a slow radicalization, marijuana came in and drugs and free new ways of thinking and new
Yeah.
experiences and Timothy Leary and Ram Dass and
Oh yeah.
we were off and running and from the early 70s, my generation, they went off in a lot of directions. Some of them went to Wall Street. I was in an MBA program, number two in the country, and I dropped out rather quickly. And what I said at the time was it wasn't that I didn't want to do business, but I didn't really want to do corporate business. And that proved true.
Mm,
And um, and so I just started exploring my own way uh, with no less breaks, less blocks,
yeah.
and able to express. And I feel that my parents had their karma for whatever, and I had my own karma, and that's just the way
Mm.
that it turned out. I can't say that it was good or bad. It was an incredible, and it still is an incredible opportunity. It's not
Yeah.
over
So
yet.
so it sounds like your parents weren't religious and they didn't really bring you up religious. They allowed you to be kind of open.
Well, they were, the family was Jewish, but they weren't synagogue Jewish. And I think they were moralistic in the sense of wanting me to be a good person, but they didn't. There was a generation, why they left early could have been that they were kind of a block, that they wanted to. I talk about that. That conditioning has been passed down for 5,000 years from generation to generation. That each generation makes it more and more difficult to. It's more and more sticky because of their own insecurities and their own misunderstandings and their own reacting to parents' reactions, to grandparents' reactions, to great parents' reactions, to great great parents' reactions. And so my parents, in a sense, I felt were a um, uh, martyrs in a sense that they really blocked me from that. And my sister was 6 years older. She didn't have it as much, but I did. Maybe being a boy and maybe being a rambunctious boy, I didn't get so much of it, and I appreciated that. But the thing was that I wouldn't have been. It wouldn't have been so sticky for me because I didn't really believe any of it. I like to say I grew up in a place and a time in the power center, perhaps the world in some ways,
Oh
culturally,
yeah, New York. Yeah.
and and I couldn't wait to get out of there. So, I didn't I saw it as being, I don't know if phony was the right word, but it just wasn't very attractive to me. I didn't really feel uh I never wanted to be successful there and be, and it was nothing. I was by 1973, I was living on 80 acres in Oregon.
Is that the commune?
No,
Uh,
no, what I had, that was, I had started a community, a commune, I guess, a community in the Bay Area, in one of the suburbs of the Bay Area in 1971, where
wow.
we were living together as a family. And the thing was that the way I looked at it is that that university and schooling didn't really teach you about life. It taught you about academic subjects, and it
Yeah.
was trying to normalize you to exist in a 9 to 5
Oh
world.
yeah. Yep.
And so when we got together, boy and girl, and we got to live together and learn about girls and boys and love and getting hurt and all of these things that were more physical plane and exploring natural foods, exploring our own selves. That was it was an education, and then I got this idea to move to the country, so I moved to the country, and none of them really joined me, which was fine, and we eventually moved back to California, but I lived on in a I like to say that I had to go back to 1870, pre-electricity, pre-modern conveniences in order to understand. And maybe I only stayed there for 10 minutes. We bought a hand saw, maybe a two-man saw, and maybe in 10 minutes I realized that isn't going to work to cut wood. And I got a chainsaw. But
Okay.
but going back there for me helped me to understand, to make sense of, as a history major in college, to make sense of where we were at. And I could see when we moved to Oregon, we only had four-digit phone numbers.
Wow.
So it was a step back in time. It was a step back in society. It was a step back in time, and I felt uh, more clarity, I suppose,
Hmm.
in living that way. The Back to Landers movement of the 70s, Mother Earth magazine, which I think is still around, but that whole idea of back to Earth, and I talked about one time on the podcast, oh, Whole Earth catalog, the Whole Earth catalog. You ever heard of that?
Ah.
So there was Stuart Brand. There was the idea that before internet, that the whole Earth catalog was a catalog like Sears catalog of where you could find all the tools for homesteading and for new ways of living. You know, all the tools that you would need, that he
Oh,
created this whole Earth catalog, which was inches thick. It was a store in Berkeley, and then it became a catalog. Maybe I don't know which one was first, and where you could get the tools, you could find the shovels, and you could learn about flour grinders and all kinds of things. That you pumps how to pump water and all the things to live back to the earth, which is now sort of survivalist sort of a thing now. But back then it was sort of a strategy in order to find your live your roots, find your roots,
yeah.
understand why the modern society, you read now that let's say that artificial flavoring isn't good for you. Okay, I'm just picking something.
Yeah.
Well, in the 1920s or whenever it was invented, whatever concept you come up with, people knew that in the 1920s or whenever it happened, or the 1940s. These weren't new ideas, but they weren't really popularized, and we didn't really understand that. I mean, if not politically, but let's just say if the Federal Reserve isn't such a good idea, there were people that knew that back when it happened. That wasn't new information. And there were probably, and again, I'm not trying to get political, but the vaccines, there were probably people in the 50s who hated the vaccines and knew that they were at the time that there was an while there was a beautiful quality to it, that there was also a danger to it. And I'm not picking on vaccines. I'm just using something that comes to mind in order to the things that we object to now in our society. People have been objecting to those things for since they began, but that
Yeah.
wasn't a movement or popularized. And so there was the tremendous shift in culture and understandings going through both Kennedys getting killed and Luther King getting
Oh,
killed,
yeah. Wow. Oh, man.
assassination season. I mean, it was a pretty wild time.
Yeah, I was just curious to ask you about the commune because I was watching another one of your podcasts that you did, and I was like, I feel drawn to that lifestyle, man. Like more and more, like with this economy and the way the world's going, like my hours got cut at work. I'm a college graduate and I'm trying so hard, and it's like I'm a college graduate and it's like and I'm still struggling to get by. Like sometimes I just want to go off grid, man, and just go live off the earth somewhere with a community.
Well, I think that's a great idea. I mean, it originated thousands of years ago. It's called an ashram, and that has a guru. It's the idea of people supporting a lifestyle and living together and communities. There was a communities magazine, and living together is a very natural way to explore, and we did explore that in the 70s. That was a thing that we explored in a way. What can I say? They understood it in the 30s, and we lived it in the 70s, and now it comes around again. That
Yeah,
that that it makes more sense, and it's a spiral that you
yeah,
come back to it, but in a deeper way. And it's like in the 30s, it might have been futuristic that society is going to. There was a book. There was a book, I don't remember the name of it right now, but it was a couple who were in their 90s at the time, in the 70s, when they wrote the book, and had been living on the land since the 20s or 30s or something, with
oh
that
wow,
natural lifestyle, and had been feeding themselves. And they didn't, it wasn't so much a community, but it was this natural lifestyle. And so it becomes more real. It's like in the 30s, we're going to need to in the future live this way, and in the 70s, it's really how we need to live this way. And then in the 2000s, it becomes, well, if we don't, then there won't be an alternative. It becomes more tense every time you get around to it. So yeah, I encourage you to look around and explore that. It's a wonderful way to live. There are still vibrant communities all over the
yeah.
planet growing.
Okay, so yeah, so it sounds like in the 70s you were kind of doing the commune thing, and then you said 80 acres, I think in Oregon or whatever. So, and then now you're in India. So at what point did you, go to India, and how did you become interested in Vedic astrology and the Enneagram?
Okay, well, there's a little bit of jumps there, but that's fine. So by the end of the 70s, I was living in a spiritual community in California. That the idea of community and the idea of spirituality, which were growing, I ended up becoming a disciple of an Indian master and living in a spiritual community in California for 20 years, which had we lived on 700 or 800 acres with say 300 people, and it's still all vibrant today. Now there's hundreds of centers all over the world and communities all over the world with this particular one work. By 99, I was ready to I call it graduate. And I didn't necessarily leave the teachings, but I was ready to explore larger, and I started traveling the world. And the community was based on with an Indian teacher, and so when I got back into astrology in the 90s, I had been introduced to Vedic astrology, which is the astrology of India, and so that seemed rather natural. The Enneagram. A friend of mine had suggested that I explore the Enneagram in 99, and I did that. And I found it in the first weekend that in the first class I took, which was a weekend seminar, it occurred to me that that Enneagram had some similarities to astrology. And so it became a life study of exploring the two modalities together. And I find them that they support each other in a way that creates more of a depth that they don't have alone. And the fact that most people don't see it or understand it, I don't really have a problem with that. I just think that's on them. That's not on me. But for me, it's been incredible to be able to uh, um, reflect to clients
Mm.
the information and the wisdom, which isn't mine. It's through me, not from me. It's not my wisdom and experience in order to be able to help them to um, understand their life in a totally new way. Because just the understanding of it creates the healing and makes the changes.
Wow. Yeah, so, in preparing my outline for this interview with you, I had never heard of the Enneagram. Maybe I had heard of it, but not really, and so I was doing my research into it, and I'm excited to dive into that a little bit more with you because I took my test and found out my number and all that. But before we get into that, so how would you say that Vedic astrology differs from Western astrology?
Okay, so the way I say it is that the signs are basically the same, not basically. The signs are the same. The planets are basically the same. I don't use the outer planets, but the planets are basically the same. And the meanings are generally the same. I like to say Western astrologers don't agree with Western, and Vedic don't agree with Vedic. And if Western and Vedic don't agree, that's just part of astrology. So and the houses are basically the same. So the big difference is that the chart is cast 24 degrees difference. Western astrology is based on a relationship between the sun and the moon, sun and the earth. That's called the seasons. And so March 21st is Aries zero every year. But Vedic astrology is based on the earth and the sun, and then the sky behind the sun. And the sky behind the sun is moving every year because the sun is moving in the galaxy, or the
Yeah.
universe. And it's called the
Oh,
precession of the equinox. It's a
yeah.
26,000 year cycle. And I heard your podcast yesterday. You mentioned 2160 years. And so I did the math to make sure. So that's 72 degrees a year times 30 degrees is 2160 years that it's in that constellation. But the thing is that Vedic uses the astronomical constellation where the planets actually are, and Western has this arbitrary freezing that it's based on the seasons, which is accurate,
Mm.
but I don't consider it as deep because it's
Oh,
not
okay.
taking into a larger sphere. So we're 24 degrees backwards. So if you're a Leo sun, most likely to me, you're a Cancer sun, and that's a big difference.
Oh, wow. Wow. Yeah. So yeah, that is kind of a big difference then with Vedic, right?
Well, yeah, and it's just going to get worse.
Yeah.
I mean, in a thousand years, it's going to be, now we're three-quarters of a sign apart. In a thousand years, I don't know what the math is. 2,000 years, we're going to be a sign and a half or two signs
Yeah.
apart. And, I mean, then they won't have any relationship to each other. The North Star has moved. That if you go back 5,000 years, 10,000 years, the star, because of the precession of the equinox and because the poles change, that the star that would be the North Star is a different star
Oh,
5,000 years
wow.
ago.
Yeah. Yeah. So it makes me wonder how accurate it is then because there's so many things moving around and all that, you know?
Which part accurate?
Like for example, like are you familiar with the calendar changing? You know, before we used to be the Julian calendar, now we're the Gregorian calendar. That was since 1582. You know, I feel like there's so many things, you know, moving around and Western astrology believes it this way and Vedic astrology believes it that way and like you said, things are moving, so, you know?
Well, my attitude about this is that uh, when I give a reading in Vedic chart, I've had a situation where you've had Western astrologers there, and I will say it's the debilitated sun, say, okay, and they say, oh well, look, it's Pluto is squaring, and they say the same thing, but they had their cause is completely different. And so you can do a chart reading and you can put in the wrong something wrong, you can AM or PM or 63 instead of 64 or June instead of January, and you start reading the chart and people are saying, yeah, right on. And then we say, you're born on the 17th. No, it was the 27th. So then I go to the right chart, but they didn't find that there was anything fallacious in the reading.
Uh,
And so somehow astrology seems to be accurate no matter what we do, that it's so universal
okay.
that no matter what we do, we don't seem to get it wrong. And I find that to be absolutely amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, that is amazing. And so, I believe in astrology and all that, but I was just confused on like with all these moving parts and all that, like, how accurate could it actually be? And then when I was doing the Enneagram, I was like, dude, this is like pretty spot on. Like it's not dealing with all the constellations and all that. It's like
Uh-huh.
super spot on. So,
Well, I think the thing is that I think that I tell this story that I was in Bodh Gaya, which was the place that the Bodhi tree where Buddha found enlightenment. I was there a couple of times. It's one of the power spots in the world.
oh
And the
wow.
thing is that when you're there, the story is that the tree probably wasn't there. But the thing is that people have been coming there for more than 2,000 years. And so there's tremendous power there. But the power isn't that the tree was there. The power is that everybody believes that the tree is there or was there.
Was there, yeah.
And the tree that's there is a distant relative from the tree that's there now is from the 1800s because the Buddhist tree is long gone, but the tree is different and the location is different and it doesn't seem to matter. And so I learned that the belief in something, in a sense, the belief in it makes it true.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
the belief in it's like that, we talk about now, what do they call that? The gaslighting, I
Yeah.
mean, it's the belief in it, and which I'm not really up on the term because I'm not so modern that way. But that idea that you say something, if that's the right term, that you say something and everybody believes it, even though it isn't true, is sort of the same idea. And so the group thing around astrology, that the chart, that somehow, no matter how you read it, whether you do channeling, whether you do astrology, whether you do psychic, whether you do da 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 da. At a fair, people will go around the room to all these different healers, which are doing completely different modalities, and they'll say, "Oh, everybody's telling me the same thing. Why is
Yeah.
that?"
Yeah.
I think it's because truth is universal, and the tool isn't really. It's there's a phoniness to it. It isn't really the tool that's doing it. It's like let's say a doctor, it's the belief in the doctor that's healing. Maybe not the kind word, or maybe the medicine helps, but maybe it isn't the medicine. Maybe it's the smile of the nurse that makes you feel
Yeah.
better and gets you
Oh,
stronger. Do you
yeah.
understand?
Yeah.
I'm just picking at examples. I'm not trying to make the examples, I'm trying to make points. I'm not trying
Yeah.
to be the examples to be the important thing.
Yeah. I got you. So what about, so you use both astrology and the Enneagram. Um, how do you use these tools as a tool for personal growth and self-awareness?
Well, how I use them is the four doorways to conscious living that I give at the end of the reading. And the idea here is the first doorway is to learn to observe, is to watch your own thinking and behavior, is to watch your reactions to other people's thinking and behavior, to watch your reactions to situations, to watch other people's reactions to situations, to get out of the movie of your life into the audience, to create to live in an objectivity, to get out of the story enough to see that it's not other people that are hurting me, but that it's my own actions that are hurting me. And then the
Wow.
second doorway is to let go and release what doesn't serve you. You have to become aware of a feeling. You have to let it come up and stay with it without wanting to make it different or do anything about it. But you need to get behind the energy of the feeling. That's what you have to let go, and you have to ignore all your thoughts. And the third doorway is to love yourself, and then you will live in the moment. If you live in the moment, you will love yourself. How do you love yourself? Is by letting go and releasing anything that doesn't serve you. Now, ice cream right now may serve you, and that's okay. But being insecure about yourself may not be serving you. And then the idea here is to let go of that as much as you can in the moment. And then how do you know what to let go? Is just by observing that life will tell you, will give you what it is that you're holding on to.
Wow, yeah, that's great, man. I love that. So for the listeners who aren't familiar, so what is the Enneagram, and how does it help individuals understand their personality and spiritual development?
Well, the name Enneagram comes from Greek. It means nine-sided figure, but the teaching has nothing to do with Greece, but somehow the name does. And the idea is that it's three geometric shapes that have been combined in order to create 9 points. And so you can put anything at these points. And in the 60s, a man decided to put personality types at the points, personality styles, and it evolved into something that's called the Enneagram of Personality. And the teaching is that there are in fact 9 personality styles or points, and that these 9 types, that one of us has one of these styles, patterns at our core, and it's how the patterning is so strong that it explains our core triggers, and it explains our ways of being, and our basic fears, which are, we all have a basic fear, but each type is completely different, and are reacting completely differently to the same event. And we used to say at 9/11, the anger types got angry, the fear types got afraid, and the image or emotion types thought that they had caused it. So everybody's having the same event but reacting in a different way. And so the 9 types are that there are 3 core instincts, or there are 3 centers of intelligence or instincts. That's anger, emotion, and fear. And while we have all 3 of them in us, one of them is at our core. And that there are 3 reactions to energy coming toward us. There are those that go outward to it, they're more extroverted. There are those that pull back from it, they're more introverted. And then Everything's a triad, especially with nine. There's a lot of triads, threes. And so the third is called a neutral, which is an active neutral strategy of observing before behavior. And so three reactions to energy coming towards you, and times three core instincts gives us nine unique energetic Enneagram vibrational signatures.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah. So, like I said, I filled mine out, and when I did it, I tried to fill it out as honest as I could, because I know that's how you get the best results out of these things. And it reminds me of the Myers-Briggs. And is it similar to that kind of?
Yeah, it's well, Meyer-Briggs is 16, of course, but there are similar in the typing. Meyer-Briggs doesn't have the spirituality to it. It's more a psychological tool, and the Enneagram is an incredible psychological tool. But psychology doesn't really have an end game other than observing behavior. There's no end game in that.
Yeah.
But spirituality, as a spiritual tool, the Enneagram is unique because it has no bias. It doesn't care what your story is, and the goal of it is to come back to the moment, is to release obsessions and compulsions, is to see the obsessions and the compulsions through the observing of the understanding of the patterning of your Enneagram point. And then, like astrology, it shows you your obsessions and compulsions. And then the idea is to let go of those. And when you let go of them, then you live in the moment. So that's the spiritual goal.
I love that. Yeah. Like I said, I tried to fill it out as honest as I could. And the answer I got back, I was reading all about it. I was like, oh my God. Like it was like a slap in the face with like, wow. Like, some of it was kind of painful. It's like, it's things that I know about myself where I'm like, you know what? If I'm honest, I know that that's what it is. You know what I mean? But it was like, and I also had to tell myself, I was like, you know what? Like, there's no right or wrong personality type. Like, they're all just what they are. And there's pros,
Yeah.
the strengths and weaknesses to all of them. So, because it was
Yeah.
like the weaknesses of them was really like hurting my feelings a little bit, and I was like, but it's the truth. Like every personality type has their weaknesses. It's not like there's a right or wrong personality type, but it's like you said, it's kind of like working with that information so that you can work with it and come, heal it and become a better person out of it. So I got number 5, which was investigator.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
five. So the observer. So you get overwhelmed with a number of people. You need to understand things. How you attack life is by understanding. When you can understand it, Buddha was a five. It's a place of wisdom. You need to share your wisdom. Maybe that's why you're doing your podcast.
Wow.
Rather
Okay.
than rather than sharing the wisdom that comes through me, you have to share the wisdom that comes through you. That's the five. But it's a place of understanding. It's the nerds, it's the computer nerds, it's the yeah, they beautiful souls,
Yeah.
fives.
Yeah, it was like everything I was reading is like I kind of isolate, right? Like I isolate a lot, and I don't know how to describe it, but it's just this feeling of like I have a wall up. Like I'm very selective with who I let in because I guess I have been wronged. I've been hurt in my life by people, I guess, if I'm honest, like breakups and friends and stuff like that. I've been hurt. So I'm very selective with who I let in because I know how people are. But I'm just like, I don't like spending so much time with people and wasting time like just chit chatting. It's like I could go be learning, I could go be doing music or doing something, and it's like I don't like wasting time. And it was like everything it was telling me, it was like exactly what I am. And people, it was telling me too, like people will get offended by it, like they think that I'm arrogant, or like people will get offended, like I think I'm better and stuff. And it's like, no, like I don't think I'm better or anything like that. It's just like I want to make use of my time, and I'm sensitive to energy, and I can't be around a lot of people all the time. It's not that I'm trying to like, hurt people's feelings intentionally. I like my alone time, you know?
Yeah, you need your alone time because you get overwhelmed when you have too much energy and too many people around. It's a little bit of a thin skin, not in the sense of emotionality, but you just have fives can be thin in the body and they don't have much meat on the bone, and they get drained, and so they have to protect them. They have to learn to protect themselves. Neither, like you say, neither right or wrong. It's just the way that they are. They have to protect themselves, and yes, they can be they're intellectual, so there can be come off as an arrogance, but it's really a protection. It's a protection device because they feel inadequate at the core, and how
Yeah.
how they handle that is by because they're centered in they're the mental fear, mental inward, as I was giving. I'm a seven. I'm the fear outward. So
Oh, you're a seven.
so yeah, I'm a seven. So I wanna give you, for the listeners, I wanna, if I can use you, I wanna give you another part of it. So that part of the teaching is that there are five personas that we take on. And so the first is the wings, called the wings. And it's a coping strategy. I teach it as a coping strategy, and the strategy is that you go to the two numbers, the stories of the numbers on either side of your number. So you go to four, where you become more sensitive and more emotional, perhaps dramatic, and feeling. You become more emotional as a strategy, or you go to six, where you become more doubtful and more fear-based, more of the fear and doubtful, and needing to have loyalty and more dutiful, more detail-oriented. Do you recognize these in yourself?
Yeah.
Okay, so that's the first level of defense, and there's nothing wrong with going there, but the opportunity is for you to recognize these behaviors in order to then ask yourself, what's triggering me, in order to release the trigger. When that doesn't work, when the wings as a coping strategy don't work, then you go to stress place. Your stress place is seven. And then you go more outward. You become more spontaneous, which you're not at five. You become more, whether it's party or whether it's a lot of people, and you do it in a five way. You're not over the top with it, but it's very unusual behavior for you unless you're stressed all the time, and it's not a normal behavior. And then so that's the seven, and more greener pastures and moving. You're wanting to be in community. That's seven. That's your feeling the stress, and so you want to go and start a community like I did as a seven. Okay, so then the last point is in relaxation. You go to eight, and what happens at eight is you get, so the eight is the boss. That's Jack Nicholson. It's the strongest personality. And for the five going to eight, you get confidence. And the fives love that confidence at eight. You need to bring that confidence that you get at eight, the security, the assertiveness, the aggressiveness that you show at eight in relaxation that you don't have in five. You need to learn to bring that back.
Man, see, this is like the most spot on, whatever you want to call it, reading or whatever that I've done, even more than the Myers-Briggs. And, I've done human design, but this to me is like even more spot on. And yeah, that was like the main thing that I took out of it was, okay, so I'm a five, but what is it? The arrows, right? So I need to go to
The arrows.
eight, like you said, eight and seven. Yeah, that's where I need to go to get out of my
You
head,
need to get to eight. Yeah, you
Yeah.
want to not do the seven. Though there's a teaching that says that you can integrate, which would be relaxation. You can integrate in either one. I personally haven't found too many people that do that. I mean, maybe at a high level you can, but for most people, one of them is stress related, and the other is relaxation related. And what I want to say is that everybody has these five places, but for each number, those five places are different. Only fives have this combination of four, six, seven, and eight. So the five is four. Five is your four is your coping strategy. Five is your core place. Six is your coping strategy. Seven is your stress, and eight is your relaxation. Nobody else necessarily has them in order like that, but they certainly don't have that same combination. Everybody has a combination just like that, but it's not the same.
Wow.
Ones go to four in stress, twos go to eight in stress, threes go to nine in stress, fours go to one in stress. So it's all different. Everybody's moving around, taking on everybody else's numbers. But the thing that's amazing is that every five is doing your same patterns, and every four is doing their patterns, and every three is doing their patterns. And it blows my mind, not only that they figured it out, but that it is so universally true.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and culture to culture, it's the same. I worked with
Oh,
an Indian lady 2 days ago who was a one. And I mean, and she nailed all of the things that we talk about at one. You think, well, no, lives in India. Of course, she's a pretty Western Indian, but doesn't matter. But the fact is that they're all cultural. The only time I heard the only thing I ever heard was when I was in this place boat guy I just told you about, where the Bodhi tree. We were talking with a British monk, and he said that the Tibetans don't understand the Westerners' shame around doing the meditations, that they feel not worthy of doing the meditations and doing the practices. And the Tibetans didn't have shame in their culture. And so they didn't
Wow.
understand that.
Wow.
But I mean, that is like the only, I mean, if you're going to go back to the Aboriginal, they probably won't have it either. But short of that, these things, these ways of being, I've worked with Chinese, I've worked with Indians, I've worked with people from, all over the world, and these I call this is the 5,000 years of Judeo-Christian tradition. This is all the conditioning that's been passed down for generation to generation. It's so universal that this is the key to unwind those particular stories to get you back to the moment. That's the power of the Enneagram.
Wow, that's powerful stuff. So you offer readings, right, to help people go through these.
Yes.
So
Yes.
how how can
I use it. I'll tell you in a minute. I use it with the astrology, that I can see that in a fives chart that you're going to have a weak moon, because the emotionality is a very sensitive place. You don't like emotion, and you're going to stay mental rather than feel the emotions, and that as a fear type, then Saturn and Mercury are going to be triggered. They could be incredibly strong, but usually they're debilitated, or they're cuspy, or there's something about them that isn't that is a weakness in your chart. You're going to have so I can see patterning in the charts that express the Enneagram, and then it helps people to you know, to understand themselves better. I call it's a different perspective on you, that the Enneagram gives you one perspective, and the astrology gives you the same result, but comes from a completely different place. So you get an opportunity to see it manifest in different ways. That helps to give the clarity about it.
Yeah, this is powerful stuff. So I'm curious for you and your journey. So you said your core principle was a 7, and then you had to shoot over to what, to 5 or to.
Well, five is my realization. So, not my realization, my uh, relaxation,
So
realization, the
we're literally
relaxation.
we're literally the opposite.
Yeah, that happens for a lot of people.
Uh,
My wife's a 9. She has a 1 wing, and in stress, 7s go to 1 in stress. So I learned early on in a relationship, only one of us could be at 1 at a time.
yeah, I
Because
bet.
one is the perfectionist, and the perfectionist needs to do things the right way. So there can't be two right ways. So I had to learn that I had to give her 1, that I had to stay out of stress, because she had to stay in 1. But it works that way for a lot of people. That for me, 7 as a 7, 5 is my relaxation, because of the lines you talked about. So the lines go both ways. So
Yeah.
7 and 5 are connected, and so 5 goes to 7 in stress, and 7 goes to 5 in relaxation. So I did my studying, like I had years where I became the student. That's how I learned many of the things that I share. But it's important for me. One of my friends said that if I teach as a college professor, I'm going to bore everybody. That's the 5. I need to come back to the 7 and be the enthusiast. That's the name of the 7, to be the enthusiast and have fun with it. And I rip into people's lives here in these readings for 3 hours, and I make it, and it becomes fun, because there's no judgments. It's not serious in the sense of we're trying to laugh about it. We're not trying to, there's no doom and gloom, because they already know these. I'm not telling them things. I'm telling them some things they don't know. I mean, they're putting together in ways they don't know, but that you knew the
Yeah.
behavior. You
Yeah.
just you just didn't put it into a total context.
Yeah, like it's always the thing where they say, like, in life we should always be asking, our family, our friends, our relationships, like, you know how can I be a little bit better? Like what are my weaknesses? But I'm always like too afraid to ask that question because I don't want to know, and how many of us out there don't want to know? It's like, no, I don't want to know. But it's like when you do this Enneagram, it shows it to you, and it's like you know what the truth is, and it's like, yeah, I
Yeah.
gotta work on that. So I think the main thing out of all this, it's all about self-awareness, right? So how would you describe like what does self-awareness mean to you, and why is it essential for the personal transformation?
Whew. Self-awareness is realization of a higher self, that we're not the body, that we're not the thoughts, that we are essence, soul, that is timeless. No birth, no death have I, that it's just the body that comes and goes, but that's not who we are. And so the self-awareness is to let go of the identity with the body, to let go of the identity with being a jerk, to let go of the identity of being a loser, to let go of the identity of being wanted or not wanted, or capable or not capable, and that's self-awareness. And why is it important? Because in that in truth, there's no pain and suffering. To give to use Buddha's, your brother Buddha there, your five brother Buddha, that to release the pain and suffering of of a truth that isn't real.
I love that.
It all
Yeah.
disappears in the moment of clarity. All of the junk disappears, and it's not very relevant.
Yeah, it reminds me of this quote. I'm sure you've probably heard of it. Let me know if you've heard of it. It goes, or it's not really a quote, but what is it? It's like, we're always so in our heads, and it's I'm not what I think I am, and I'm not what you think I am. I am what you think I am, that kind of a thing. And that's
Yeah.
we play out our lives by that, like how do other people see me? And and we make up these identities, like you said, and that's who we think we are, but it's like in reality we're none of it, you know what I mean? Yeah, this is profound stuff.
That's the idea, is to the it's the misidentification that we're a separate self, and that we learn it at 2 years old, and we
Oh
have to
yeah,
learn to let go of that.
let go of
That's
all of
the
it.
work, is to let go of the misidentification. And then I had a client, I think it was the same Indian lady. She said at the end, well, for the one story of feeling inadequate, she said, well, will I let go of that? I said, well, that'll always be the core trigger of feeling inadequate. But what you will learn to do is that you lose the need to compensate from it. It will always be a core trigger, but you won't be triggered into compulsive behavior from it. You will learn to
Mm,
to see through it, and not objectify, identify with it. You will learn to recognize it so that you don't sit in it.
wow, yeah, that's powerful, man. So I'd like to ask you kind of a deep, profound question. This is a big question. Like in your view, what is the ultimate purpose of life?
Okay, well, purpose is my view is that there is no purpose. Purpose is a mind question. Purpose is an ego question, that we need purpose because then we have understanding and we have value. And I think we can have understanding and value without that. I think there could be some, I'll go a little bit of destiny. I think that karma pushes us in a
Okay.
direction. But I read in a book once that at the moment of birth, that the moment of death is already programmed. But how you get there isn't programmed. And
Oh
so
wow.
we can develop our own way and reach that conclusion, the conclusion of the body, in our own way. But that is set. And so
Oh wow.
and so I think purpose is trying to be something, and I'm not trying to be anything. The less I want to be anything, the happier I am. So
Wow, I love that.
I'm
Yeah,
I'm just happy with what is.
I love that. Yeah, I'm what 32, and I, on the spiritual path and all that. And I feel like as I go along my journey, I've always been in a firm believer of destiny and all that. So it's interesting what you just shared with me about how our death is already kind of programmed already. I've always kind of had a feeling, a hunch about that, which could explain things like deja vu and all these things. But yeah, I've been always just so set with, oh, what's my mission? What's my purpose? And it's true. Like I love your answer there. Like the further I go along my journey, I start to realize like the purpose is that there is no purpose. It's just,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
Yeah, there's a need for being something. There's a need to that we have to value ourselves because society and modern life doesn't really give you a lot of value. We have mundane jobs and we have mundane existence and we have we don't forage our food and we don't grow our food and we it's a store bought reality and it's demeaning uh you know um in a sense it's a demeaning lifestyle and it's what I was trying to say at the beginning, that the people in the 20s and 30s, they were trying to create communities and new ways of living and to break out because they already knew that the meaning was that there were compromises being made,
yeah,
that there were compromises. And I'm not picking on Ford in particular, but let's just say they created Ford created the assembly line. Well, now instead of being a craftsman, now you're a bolt screwer, and
wow.
you go through life every day screwing the same damn bolt. And in that, and again, I'm not picking on him,
No,
just using it as example,
wow, yeah,
what would you want to call it? Uh, Dumbing down of life is not very healthy.
yeah, that's very true. Really enjoying this conversation. So, but as we kind of close it out here, can you send the listeners out there just a final message of love and healing, especially for the ones who might be struggling out there?
Ah, well, well, we're all struggling in one way or another. Don't take them so personal that they're really there for a larger purpose. That God it isn't God is everything. I mean, it isn't that He's watching over you. That's kind of a anthropomorphic idea. But the fact is that we are God. That we are nature. That's why we enjoy nature, because we get back to ourselves. And so, I mean, we're here uh, for a purpose, not the purpose of writing the book or being a talk show host or doing a podcast. That's something we do, but we're here to learn and grow. And so it's a self-expression. God wanted to um, express himself. He wanted to live. He wanted to live in himself. And so this plane was, if was it created? I don't know if that's the right word. It was manifested. Maybe that's a better word. I don't know if that's the right word. It doesn't really matter. But it was here for us to learn. And so the dream world, the sleepy dream world is a dream world, and the waking dream world is a dream world, and to learn to not to take it so seriously and to appreciate the small things and have them grow into the bigger things, and rather than sitting on the failures in a global view, is to be in the moment with the beautiful sun and clouds and sky behind you, in a good moment. That's enough right there. That the beauty of the sky, the sun that is the creator of life, that not the creator, but maintainer of life, that grows the food, that makes us warm, that gives us
Mhm.
light.
Yeah.
Um, Photosynthesis, you want to get up on a miracle. Photosynthesis, that plants take in sun and create food and energy from it. Whew, so get galactic with your gratitude and minimize. I don't want you to minimize the struggles, but try to put them into their place, that they're just momentary. A blip. The lifetime is a blip.
Wow.
And it's not really who we are. It's something we're going through. It's created for us, not to punish us, but to teach us, for an opportunity to learn and grow and self-express. That's the purpose. It's not the particular book, but it's the ability to be able to do that if we want, and that you can strum a guitar and make harmonious sounds. That's just to meditate on that for a while. That's the solution I can offer right now.
Yeah, I love that. They're all just these little blessings, a nice sunset, a nice meal, a nice conversation like we're having here, connecting with another human being. All these things are little blessings, and I know it's hard to realize sometimes, but you just got to try to enjoy the small things. So I really thank you for meeting with me today, Indra. It's been such a great conversation. Thank you for providing such great wisdom and insights about the Enneagram. So I also want to thank the listeners for sticking it around to the end. So Indra, please tell everyone where to find your information so they can do a reading with you with the Enneagram and all that.
Okay, so you can find me on, I have a website, indrarinzler.com. I'm on Facebook under my name. I like to give the listeners two free offers that I'll send you an Enneagram test. If you email me, indrarinzler@gmail.com, I'll send you an Enneagram test, a short one that for many people will give you your point, and if not, it will get you started. And also, I'd be happy to send you your Vedic astrology chart. I need you to email me birth, date, time, and place, and I'll send you your chart. It's not a reading. I'll make a couple of comments perhaps, but it's just your chart and a place
Mm,
to get started. So that's a free offer also. Reach out. I have a number of different readings that I offer that are pretty unique and I've spent a long time, many years to this is something I always wanted to do, but it didn't manifest until later in life, and I'm fine with that. But the reality of it is that it will take you to a deep place, and for people, the people who are the most confused and need answers the most, that these teachings are especially geared for them. And so anybody who's really seeking, please reach out.
awesome. Thank you so much.